The CDC has mysteriously changed its guidelines when it comes to testing. They did so quietly, there was no press release, but luckily people started to notice and wanted to know why it is that all of a sudden, the CDC is saying that if you've been in close contact with individuals who have tested positive for coronavirus, you yourself do not need to get tested. That goes against what the CDC directives were prior to this. What changed? What's the difference? Well, ABC News reports that after weeks of encouraging people to get tested if they may have been exposed to COVID-19, the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention abruptly changed course this week and is now telling the public testing might not be necessary. Now, let's all remember that Trump previously cried about how widespread our testing was because he felt that it made him look bad that we had such a high number of Americans testing positive for coronavirus. In fact, he even admitted to wanting to slow the testing down during his Tulsa rally. Here's what that looked like.
When you do testing to that extent, you're gonna find more people, you're gonna find more cases. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Yep. That's what he apparently told his people. Turns out that the CDC is acting on it now. I should also note that after that Tulsa rally, Trump also said, instead of doing 25 million tests, let's say we did 10 million tests. We'd look like we were doing much better because we'd have far fewer cases. Meaning ignorance is bliss. Let's go ahead and pretend like this problem doesn't exist so I can get reelected and not expose myself for the absolute failure that I am. That's what Trump is saying there. Now, the CDC swears that they were not pressured by Trump to make this decision. Here are some official statements. This is evidence-based decisions that are driven by scientists and physicians, both within the CDC, within my office in the lab task force, and certainly amongst the task force members. And he also says, getting a negative test that 3 days is not totally meaningless, but pretty close to it. It should not give you a self-reassurance that you will be negative. It should not give you a false sense of security. You should not engage in risky behavior. I don't even know what that means. People should get tested if they've been exposed to the virus. That way, if they're asymptomatic, they at least know that they have the virus and should probably stay away from other people so they don't spread it to individuals who could actually die from it. And by the way, when reporters were asking questions, they had no answers for why they've changed course. They just assured us that Trump didn't in any way pressure the CDC to change course. Anthony Fauci was having surgery and was under anesthesia when this decision was discussed within the coronavirus task force. He told CNN, quote, "I'm concerned about the interpretation of these recommendations and worried it will give people the incorrect assumption that asymptomatic spread is not of great concern. In fact, it is." Anthony Fauci, the only voice of reason within this administration, really.
Yeah, in all of you doing your job and trying to figure out exactly what led the CDC to do this, if it wasn't pressure from Trump, because obviously they would have never done that, did they point to new research showing that asymptomatic individuals are at less risk than previously thought of infecting others?
No, of course not. They haven't answered any. It was 100% the pressure. And if you're not convinced, guys, if you think that maybe I'm being unfair, I'm being a bad girl because I dislike Trump. Well, turns out that a federal official actually spoke to CNN and made it clear that there was a task force meeting in which the upper ranks of the Trump administration pressured the CDC to change the guidelines.
No, Anna, don't say that. Anna, you have Trump derangement syndrome. He says stuff and you just take it too seriously. You freak out every time he says something. He's just being bombastic. He's a carnival barker. Come on, don't take him so seriously. It doesn't mean anything. No, they're pushing for less testing. They're gonna artificially make it look like there's a little bit less coronavirus. More people will die as a result of that. Maybe in the short term, it'll help Trump a little bit, like in the story you just talked about 15 minutes ago. Yeah, no, we were right to freak out. because he says crazy things and then they become government policy and people die as a result of it. It's not gonna get better.
We can pull this up, but I would love to show the audience the map of the countries that have banned Americans from traveling there because of how much we've failed. And when I say we, I mean, I'm specifically talking about the Trump administration. Those are all the countries that are like, do not send. We are not interested in Americans coming to our country and infecting our citizens with this virus that has already killed 177,000 of their own. We are failing. This country with its awful, awful federal government is failing. Luckily there's been some important and good action taken on a more local level, but it doesn't matter. Municipalities don't live in these isolated islands. And so you can't prevent some person from Florida or any other state that has a high number of coronavirus cases traveling to any other state, even if it's a state or a city that's doing the right thing. People are quarantining, people are sacrificing their own businesses, their own livelihoods in order to do the right thing. It doesn't matter. All it takes is a person from specifically a red state that didn't take this seriously, travel to their city and mess everything up, because turns out we're a country full of people, and it requires a collectivist effort to, battle something like a pandemic. Turns out that our individuality doesn't really matter much when it comes to combating a virus like coronavirus.
Anna, do you know how many people died in the last daily report from Germany?
0?
No, they unfortunately are still dealing with it. It was 5 people. Other European countries are down to 0. 5 people. We've got the same number of people dying as were dying 4 months ago.
It's amazing. I don't even remember the last time we had a day when the death toll was under 1,000 people.
I think it was, if I remember correctly, it was like in the second week of June, we were below 1,000 on average. We might have had one recently, but it shoots back up, because Monday reports are always less, but it's not that less people died in a day, it's just that it takes some extra day to report it. Yeah, it's pathetic, like we said, failed state.
If this is considered winning and the best is yet to come, I don't want to experience the best.
Thanks for watching The Young Turks, really appreciate it. Another way to show support is through YouTube memberships. You'll get to interact with us more. There's live chat emojis, badges. You've got emojis of me, Anna, John, JR. So those are super fun. But you also get playback of our exclusive member-only shows and specials right after they air. So all of that, all you gotta do is click that join button right underneath the video. Thank you.